Hey, what's up, you guys? Somological here, bringing you another life story. Hope you guys like it, and if you do, be sure to drop a like. And yeah, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alright, let's get right into the story. So this one's about the time I caught my teacher smoking weed. And my teacher, let's call her Miss Paul. And Miss Paul is in like her mid-60s, but she always hated whenever someone was doing something that was considered bad. Like if someone was making dick jokes to be funny, she'd have a fucking meltdown. Or when kids would talk about smoking, and she'd be like, "No, you guys are too young to smoke. If I catch you guys smoking, I'm gonna fail you." And she was really anti-drugs and didn't like it when people did things that were considered rebellious or whatever. And whenever she saw someone wearing a t-shirt that had like rappers or drugs, she'd give the students the eyes of Satan whenever they'd walk by her. But this story takes place like 7-8 months ago, and I was in Miss Paul's class and it was algebra. And I sat in the middle, but closer to the back, and I have a friend named Kyle, and he had a friend, we'll call him George. And George and I had the same math class. And I knew George, we hung out a couple times, but we weren't really friends, we were just friends of Kyle and a few other people. But George liked to smoke, and I knew this because a couple of times I hung out with him with some of our friends, he would always smoke. And I knew that some of Kyle's other friends smoked, so I knew he smoked. But I was just chilling in the class, and I'm bored as fuck. So I just start looking around the room, and I see George, and he was in the back, and he had his hood on, but he was covering his face on his desk like this. But I see him, and I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? But I quickly realized, oh, he's smoking, which I didn't really care, but I was like, why in the middle of class, and with the worst fucking teacher to get caught? But a few minutes after that, Miss Paul noticed George, and she thought he was sleeping or something, but she says, "George, want to answer the problem written on the board?" And he looks up really fast, and you can tell he just inhaled, but he looks up and he says, "Huh?" And all the smoke comes out. And Miss Paul went from, "Okay, class, answer these questions," to, "You think you can do this shit in my class, bitch?" Which is pretty much what she said. She was like,
"Oh my god, I fucking knew it. I fucking knew you were smoking. I can't believe you at such a young age in my fucking classroom. You think it's so cool to disrespect your teachers like that."
And George is like, "Okay, I'm sorry." And then she's like, "No, no, 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 come up here." And he gets up and he goes over to the front, and she yells at him for a good 2 minutes about how smoking weed is bad and how you'll end up on the streets even if you smoke just a little bit. And she's all like,
"You guys better listen too."
and she was talking to the rest of the class. And then she was like,
"Because I know a lot of you have been smoking outside of school."
which was complete bullshit because only like one other kid in that class smoked. But she goes on this huge rant and grills George, and then she took his weed and told him to go to the office. Then George left. She got on her phone and called the front office and was like,
"I'm sending a student down who was smoking marijuana in the middle of me teaching and completely disrespected both me and his classmates."
And after she got off the phone, she got up and said,
"You guys better not smoke or you're gonna end up like him."
And then she went back to teaching, and pretty much everyone in the class, including me, agreed that she took it too far, because there had been previous times that year where teachers got a student smoking, but the teachers would just take their weed and send them to the office. They wouldn't go on a huge rant and be like,
"You're gonna fuck up your life if you keep smoking."
But I finished up class, and I head to my next class, and Kyle was in my next class. And I was like, "Yo, did you hear about George getting caught?" And he's like, "No." And I tell him what happened. He's like, "Damn, it's kind of fucked up how she yelled at him like that in front of the class." But we both talked about it, and we get through the day, and after school was over, we both had band practice. So we go through band practice. It was like 2 hours. But after band practice was over, we walked behind school to get our bikes, because sometimes we'd bike to school and the bikes were back there. And the way it was set up is there were doors in the back of the school, and then when you got through the doors, there were a bunch of bike stands where you just lock your bike, and kids would bike to school and just leave their bikes there, and after school they'd just go get them. Now Kyle and I got over to where the bikes were, and there's someone leaning up against the wall next to the bikes, and that person looked very familiar. And you want to guess who that was? Yep, it was Miss Paul. And she was just leaning up against a wall and smoking a joint. But we go over and she sees us and immediately tries to hide the weed and like blows the smoke out of her mouth really quick. And she's like, "What are you guys doing here?" And I'm like, "What are you doing here?" And she's like, "Well, I was spending time out here minding my own business until you two showed up." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, what's that in your hand?" And she's like, "Nothing you need to worry about." And I'm like, "Funny how you tell students like George if they smoked, their entire lives would be ruined and they'd be out on the streets by now. And you yell at them in front of other students." And she's like, "Well, I'm an adult and I can do whatever I want. But you guys are kids and you have no idea what it's like after you finish school." And Kyle's like, then why would you yell at students and tell them a bunch of shit just to embarrass them in front of other people while you smoke weed yourself? And I don't think the principal would be too happy if she found out you were smoking weed on school grounds. And she was at a loss for words and was like, "You guys can't say anything about that." And we're like, "Yeah, we can." And she's like, "Well, that'd be really disrespectful if you do." And I'm like, "Well, it's pretty disrespectful to humiliate students during school. And who knows, maybe the school would be a better place without you." And she looked so mad and she got up close to me and I was like, "What are you gonna do, hit me? It would destroy your teaching license and you'd be fired, so go ahead." And then she gives me the dirtiest fucking look ever and just stomps off over to her car. And then Kai yells, "Hypocrite," and she gets in her 2010 Corolla and leaves. And then Kyle and I were laughing. And then the next day at school, the first thing we did was we went to the principal and told her everything that happened about her smoking weed. But after that, I just went on with my day. And when I got to algebra, Miss Paul was nowhere to be found. Instead, we had a sub and I asked, "Where's Miss Paul?" And she said, "Oh, you didn't hear? She isn't coming back for a few months." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And this was right before Corona, and like a month later, my school got out for the rest of the year. So I basically got her suspended from the school for like a year, which was pretty crazy. But word got out around the school that she smoked weed, and people talked about it for like the last month of school, which was fucking hilarious. But I don't go to that school anymore because I'm in high school now. But I wonder what Miss Paul's doing right now, and if she's still teaching. My guess is if she saw me, she'd have a fucking heart attack. But it was definitely a pretty crazy story from not too long ago. Thank you guys for watching, I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.